let's go ahead and get started. We're gonna go right into a 90-90 stretch. So basically, we're getting set in a position here where we have a 90-degree angle at each knee and almost a little rectangle in between our legs. All right, first thing we're gonna do is focus on this leg right in front of us here. All we're gonna do is use our muscles to push our knee into the ground. So if you want, you can grab your foot and then really just use your muscles to push that knee into the ground as hard as you can. And we're gonna do that for about 5 seconds. Go ahead and relax and then lean out over the knee. Another 5 seconds there, a couple breaths. All right, then come back, grab the foot, push the knee down again as hard as you can. All right, once you get 5 seconds, one last time. All right, leaning out, relax. 5 seconds there, stretching out. All right, once we get through that, then we're gonna go ahead and do our reaches. All right, so all we're gonna do is we're gonna reach through our knee, 1, past our shin, 2, and out past our foot, 3. All right, so 1, 2, 3. All right, we're gonna do that 3 times, 3 touches on each spot there. And then what we'll do is straighten the back leg. All right, so coming up into our pigeon pose, we're just gonna rock our hips back and forth. All right, just like so. You're trying to get your butt pretty close to the ground here. All right, just loosening up the hips. Once we get, let's do about 10 of those side to side. Once we get through that, then we're just gonna hang out in that pigeon pose. All right, we should start to loosen up here. So let's hang out here for about 15 to 20 seconds. All right, get a good stretch. That'll be the last one for our glutes. Right, once we get through that, of course, you're just doing the same thing on the other leg. Once we get through that, then we're gonna move on to our adductors. So we're just throwing the leg out to the side, foot's almost flat on the ground, and then toes pointed straight forward. All we're gonna do is bounce our hips back kind of towards our heel. All right, so let's do about 10 bounces there, nice and easy. Loosening up our groin, our adductors. Once we get 10 of those bounces, all right, same leg, now we're just bringing it up like so, and we're leaning into our knee. All right, so about 5 seconds, leaning as far as you can. All right, come back to the top, relax, again, 5 seconds, leaning out into the knee. Once we get through that same leg, we're straightening it again, but this time the toe is pointed straight up in the air. All right, and we're just rocking from side to side. All right, you can have your upper body face straight forward. All right, we're just rocking about 10 of those. Then go ahead and bring the leg out in front of you. Same thing, rocking from side to side, 10 of those, and then we'll finish with our hamstring bounces. So shoulder blades pinched, we're just gonna drop our chest kind of towards our knee. All right, just little bounces here, nothing too insane. Do about 10 of those. Once we get through that, of course, again, just do the same thing on the other leg. Remember, starting at the beginning, all right, bouncing hips back towards your foot. All right, once we get through those, we're just gonna stretch out our hip flexor. So in our forward lunge, we're just gonna push our hips as far forward as we can. All right, we're gonna reach back towards the ceiling. All right, 5 seconds there. Go ahead and relax. All right, another 5 seconds, pushing your hips as far forward as you can. All right, go ahead and relax. And then if we can, let's try and reach back towards our foot. All right, and we're just gonna reach up again. Okay, and then let's hang out for about 15-20 seconds here. All right, getting a real good stretch in our quad and our hip flexor there. You can grab it with the same side arm, or you can try and reach across if that's easier for you. All right, so that's our hip flexor. Last one we'll do is our calves. So we'll do gas pedalers. All right, so kind of like our calf stretch, but this time we're just going back and forth. All right, pushing our heel just about to the ground if you can. All right, hang out there for about a second, and then we'll just go back and forth. So our first mobility exercise is leg swings. So we're just gonna start by facing the wall. You can come up on a toe, and then we're just gonna swing our free leg through up as high as we can each direction. Just loosening up the hips. We're gonna do about 5 swings, and we'll just switch to the other side. Another 5 swings on this leg here. All right, once we get through that, now we're just gonna turn against the wall sideways just like this, and then we're gonna go front to back leg swing. So inside leg, we're just gonna swing from front to back, nice and loose. Once we get through 5 swings, then we're just gonna flip the other way. Again, inside leg, just swinging our legs front to back. All right, after we finish up our leg swings, we're gonna go right into fire hydrants. These ones here, we're just gonna go down on all fours, and then we're making big circles with our knee and our foot. All right, so we're gonna kick back, swing over the top. All right, we're gonna do 5 going forwards, and we're gonna go in the opposite direction. All right, forward, out, and then back. All right, so again, 5 going forward, 5 going backwards, of course on each side. Once we get through our fire hydrants, we're gonna go right into our 90-90s. All right, this time it's a little bit more dynamic. So we're gonna sit here and we're gonna roll over to the side. Again, we talked about the 90-degree angle at each knee, a little box in between our legs. All right, all we're gonna do is reach out over the knee, 1, 2, and then we're gonna roll to the other side. All right, key here is trying to leave our heels in the ground. All right, we're gonna roll over to the other side, 1, 2, and then roll back. All right, so we wanna avoid picking our legs up and repositioning, right, or lifting your butt off the ground. All right, so butt and heels, gonna stay on the ground, just rolling from side to side. All right, once we get through our 90-90s, let's go through our squat sequence really quick. So we're just gonna start out by touching our toes. All right, we'll hold for about 3 seconds here. Then we're gonna squat down as far as we can. All right, another 3 seconds there. Last one, we're just gonna use our elbows to push our knees out, stretch out our groin. All right, another 3 seconds there. Get back to your squat, arms up, and then stand up. All right, let's go through that 3 times. All right, once we get our hips all loosened up there, we're gonna go ahead and go into our hip activation. So back in that quadruped position, just like we did with our fire hydrants, now we're just gonna activate our glute medius. All right, so we're just gonna go straight out to the side, 10 reps. All right, leg bent, we're gonna do 10 on each side. Once we get that, then we're gonna straighten the leg. All right, raising straight up again. All right, 10 reps, as high as you can. Of course, doing that on both sides. All right, once we get the glute medius, then we're gonna do our adductors. All right, so top leg's gonna go over the top just like this. All right, bottom leg is straight. What you can do is kind of grab that top leg. And all you're gonna do is lift up that bottom leg. All right, so we're just doing reps here. Just shoot for 20 reps. Getting good activation in through the hips there. So 20, and then we're gonna move on and then finish with our glute activation. So this time, we're back against the wall. All we're gonna do is push our hips out and then drive our knee up. All right, so drive the knee up, push the hips out, and then squeeze that glute as hard as you can. Okay, so we're gonna hang out here for about 20 seconds. Again, key is to drive the knee and push the hips out as far as you can, right? Squeeze the glute as hard as you can, almost like you're about to cramp up. All right, 20-second hold. All right, once you get that on each side, you're just gonna go ahead and turn against the wall sideways. All right, we're gonna push with the outside leg. All right, drive the knee up and push into the wall as hard as you possibly can. All right, drive the hips forward, squeeze the glute, push, push, push. We're gonna do that for 10 seconds, right? Then flip over and just go ahead and do the same thing on the other side.